make our different basic egg preparations, we'll use a variety of cooking tools and preparation tools. We're going to need some custard cups, a small bowl, a fork, a few turners. Remember, anything we want to use when choosing turners, we want to use the plastic and silicone kind, not the metal, because we're going to be working with non-stick pans. So that's important to keep in mind. And then we've got a couple skillets and a lid and an egg timer to help us be successful with the different egg preparations. So the ingredients we need are really pretty simple. Obviously we need some eggs. We're going to use a little bit of milk for scrambled eggs. We'll need water for a few of the preparations, salt and pepper just to add a little more flavor. And then we will need to grease our pans, and we could use cooking spray, butter, or bacon grease. So one of the egg preparations that I find the most challenging to really do well would be eggs cooked in the shell. Now, often these are referred to as boiled, so you'll hear hard boiled or soft boiled, but really to cook them properly, they should be simmered. They should never be boiled. And if they cook at a full boil, it tends to make them tough or rubbery. They may even have a green ring around the yolk. That's a chemical reaction that's displayed through that. It's called a ferrous sulfide ring. The part that makes this so difficult is that there are no visual clues to doneness. We can't really see inside the shell, so time is going to be one of the most important things. So when we prepare our eggs in the shell, we need to put enough water in the pan to cover the eggs, and then we're gonna, there's this little device that I have that I love to use when I cook eggs in the shell. It's a timer. It goes in the pan with the eggs, starts out right in there, and you'll see that right now it's red, but it turns purple. So if I want a hard cooked egg, get a little close up on this for you. If I want a hard cooked egg, it's going to go purple all the way to that line in the center of the timer. If I want a soft cooked egg, and honestly I think that is the most difficult egg to prepare properly, a soft cooked egg, the purple would only go up to the line where it says soft. So a soft cooked egg is very similar to an over easy or a sunny side up egg in that the egg white should be cooked fairly solid and the egg yolk should still be runny. But the soft cooked egg is cooked in the shell, so it's hard to see what's going on. And this timer, what I like about it is it gives us a picture of what's happening inside the egg as we see this timer go from red to purple. So I always like to use this whenever I have to hard cook eggs for any reason. The other thing that's challenging about hard cooked eggs is peeling them. So one of the things you can do to make peeling them a little more simple is you can take this blunt end of the egg, and there's an air cell here. So I can take a push pin and push the pin into the eggshell. So I get a little opening, and what it's going to do is it's going to help to make it easier to peel the egg once it comes off of the stovetop. So just a little push pin puts just a little tiny hole in the bottom of the egg, but because there's that air cell, the egg isn't going to leak out. So that's why you do the blunt end and not the pointy end. So we do need enough water to cover the egg, so I need to add a little more water. Now I've added enough water to cover the eggs completely. And the initial temperature of your egg does affect the cooking time. So if it just came out of the refrigerator, you're going to need the larger end or the longer end of the time range I'll mention here in a minute. And then also it's important to note that when you get to the end of that time, you have to stop that cooking process immediately by pouring off the hot water and covering the eggs in cold water, and you may even have to change that out a few times so that you stop that cooking process entirely right away. So if we wanted just a coddled egg, which is important for some recipes where it uses a raw egg, but we want to make sure we warm it to a point that we kill bacteria, but we haven't cooked the egg, that would need 1 to 3 minutes. A soft cooked egg, as I mentioned, is one of the most challenging. That's 3 to 5 minutes. Medium cooked would have that yolk halfway solid, would be 5 to 7 minutes. And probably the most common way people prepare eggs in the shell is a hard cooked egg, and that's 12 to 15 minutes. Again, we're going to use the egg timer that goes in with the eggs at the beginning, but we're going to set a timer as well so that we don't get distracted by events going on around us in the kitchen. So I need to set this on a burner that matches the pan. And then we're going to turn that on to a medium-high heat. Once it begins to boil, then we'll turn it down to a medium so that it just simmers. So my timer, my egg timer, reached the soft cooked stage. So basically you just want to cut off the top of the egg. There's our spoon. Because then what we do is we eat the egg, eat it from inside the shell, and hopefully our yolk, oh, there we go, nice and runny. So you can see that is a great looking soft cooked egg. So you can see our hard cooked egg is ready to be cooled off. Notice how the timer, the egg timer that started out red, has gone completely purple. So that means that the inside should be completely solidified or coagulated, cooked. And so we're going to take this, we're going to dump all the hot water off and put cold water on it. And then we can let that sit briefly, but if that cold water warms up, we need to dump it again so that the egg is sitting in cool, cold water to stop the cooking process immediately, to avoid that greenish grayish ring that gets on overcooked eggs. So here's our hard cooked egg. It's finished cooling. We're gonna roll it a little to crack it, and then we'll peel it. I think this is probably the most challenging part of hard cooked eggs. Remember, we poked that hole in the bottom, which is helping to make it much, much easier to peel. So there's our nice hard-cooked egg. I cut into the center here so you can see the yolk. Look how nice and beautifully yellow that yolk is. You can see there's no gray-green ring on this egg. So keeping that time, stopping that cooking right away, and again, that timer, I'm a big fan of that I used to cook the egg to the perfect color and doneness. To make our poached eggs, we'll need a 2-quart saucepan, a couple of plates, a few custard cups, measuring spoons, and a slotted spoon. You can see I have here 3 different styles of slotted spoon, but any one of those would work. It would just depend on what you had in your home. Poached eggs require eggs, water in the pan, and vinegar. To begin poaching our egg, I've added the vinegar into 1 quart of water. So I've added 1 ounce or 2 tablespoons of vinegar to 1 quart of water. That's the ratio you want to keep. So if you add more water, you just add more vinegar. And I've got this on a medium-high. I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it back down so it simmers, and then we'll be ready to begin poaching our egg. So you can see we have a lot of nice little bubbles in the pan. we're going to begin to swirl this to create a vortex that we're going to slide the egg into. So I've got my egg cracked into a custard cup, ready to slide into the pan. I'm going to stir to create that vortex. So that's why I have a pan about only half full. So there's room for that water to come up without coming right out. And then we're going to slide that egg into that swirling water. Now, your poached eggs are best with fresh eggs. This egg is not quite as fresh, which is why we get all those trailers on it. And we're going to need to cook this for about 2 to 3 minutes. We want to keep that swirl going. Once the white has fully coagulated or cooked, then we'll be ready to remove the egg from the pan. And then when it's finished, take it out of the pan with a slotted spoon. Drain as much water as you can. Put it on a paper towel lined plate to get any excess water off. And then you'll move it to your serving plate. So once again, we're going to swirl. Get a good circle going. Create a vortex. Slide the egg into that swirling water. Keep the water moving. That moving water helps the thick white of the egg to stay right up on the yolk and cook a little more concisely. Poached eggs can be eaten by themselves, or they're often found as a part of dishes, different recipes. Probably one of the best known recipes for poached eggs is Eggs Benedict. So here are our finished poached eggs. The nice coagulated white, bright white yolk, and when we cut into them, we should have a nice runny center with the egg yolk, ready to serve on their own or add to your favorite dish. For our scrambled eggs, we're going to scramble 2 eggs. I find scrambling 1 egg to be one of the most difficult things. So we're going to scramble 2 eggs, and we're going to add about a teaspoon of milk per egg. So in this case, we need 2 teaspoons. And then once that's in there, we're going to take just a fork. I like a fork to mix these together, even if I have a dozen eggs that I'm going to scramble. I just feel like it does a really good job. And we want to beat these until they're a lighter yellow color. We don't want to see any yolk distinct from any of the white, and we definitely don't want to see any milk in the bowl. So you can see it's one nice homogeneous mixture. So now we're ready to get our skillet ready. So again, I'm starting that skillet off on medium-high heat. We'll get the egg in there and just let it start to cook. I've got butter in the bottom of the pan. Again, you could use cooking spray or bacon grease, whatever your preference. Once I make sure the skillet is nice and hot, we've got some bubbles in the butter, but not really a good flick, good sizzle on the water. That was a little better. There we go. So now we're ready to put the eggs in. So I'm going to pour my scrambled egg mixture into the pan. And I need to let it set for just a minute. Our goal with scrambled eggs is to have nice, large, fluffy curds of egg. Large, fluffy pieces. We want them to be firm, but still moist, not dried out, and light and fluffy. So to do that, you can't over stir it. So now that it's set a little bit, I'm going to move that around the skillet. Even turning it over. So I'm keeping it together, pushing it towards the center, pushing the eggs towards themselves. They should not be chopped up. They should not look like somebody chewed them and spit them back onto your plate for you, unless you're a baby bird. So we have lots of nice large pieces. You can see there's still moisture there. We're going to turn that off. Those are ready to move to a plate, and you could add salt and pepper to your taste. So you can see here's our light, fluffy scrambled eggs. So we're also going to prepare some eggs out of the shell. And we're going to do some fried eggs a few different ways. So I've got a little bit of butter in the bottom of my skillet. I'm going to turn my pan onto a medium-high heat. So we like to start with a medium-high so you have a really nice hot surface for those eggs to start out with. And then once the egg gets in, we're going to turn it down to a medium low to finish off cooking the egg. But we just want to have it start to quick cook when it hits the pan. So fried eggs you can do several different ways. If you don't want to break the yolk, crack it into a custard cup or a small bowl before you begin. That makes it easier to slide it into the pan and less risk of breaking the yolk. We're going to heat enough butter or cooking spray or bacon grease on medium-high, and we'll coat the bottom of that skillet. And then we want to see a drop of water sizzle. Our butter should begin to bubble. Our water should sizzle when flicked into the pan, and we'll know it's hot enough for the egg. So then we'll slide the egg in the skillet, and we'll turn the heat down to medium to finish cooking it. And then slide it out of the pan onto a plate to serve. You do want to serve fried eggs immediately. They do not keep well, so that's something to keep in mind. So there are a few different ways that you can prepare a fried egg. There's a basted fried egg where you spoon hot fat over the eggs while cooking to your desired doneness. There's over easy, where we cook it till the whites are fully coagulated. We gently flip it and the yolk will still be runny when we're finished. Over hard, cook them to fully coagulate the whites. Gently flip and the yolk is firm. That's great for an egg sandwich. Or sunny side up, where we cook the eggs to a desired doneness, but we do not flip. And we're going to do some steam basting with our sunny side up. So we've got our butter in our pan. We're going to flick a little water. Not a bad sizzle. And then we're going to pour the egg in, and we want to see that white begin to cook right away when it hits. So if you're going to add salt and pepper, if this is your own egg, this is a great time to add salt and pepper to taste, depending on how much you like. So if I'm going to make this a sunny side up egg, I'm just going to leave it like this till it's at the doneness that I would like. I'm going to turn that down to medium. So remember, medium high is 7 or 8. Medium is 5 or 6. We're going to make this egg an over easy egg. So now that most of the white has cooked, I'm going to get under that egg with my turner. Use gravity to help me out here. Flip it gently. And the hardest part here is not breaking the yolk when you flip it. Just a little bit of time on that second side to finish cooking that white. And then we'll be ready to slide it onto the plate to serve. So one of the great things about eggs is that they are a fabulous source of protein. They're the highest quality protein that you can get. They're very inexpensive and they cook up quickly. So if you're ever looking for something after a practice, or you've been out running around, errands and stuff, and you just need a quick lunch, a quick dinner. You know, lots of people think of eggs for breakfast, but they're great any time of day. So now we just need to slide our egg off onto our plate, and it's ready to serve. So there's a nice over easy egg. And we can tell it's over easy because when we cut into it, the yolk runs. For our next egg, we're going to do a steam-basted egg. Instead of just the basted, instead of doing fat over the top, we're going to take our egg, put it in, add about a tablespoon of water on the side to create some steam, and then get a nice lid over that to keep the steam in. This is probably one of the greatest ways to do a sunny side up egg because the steam helps to cook the top of the egg a little more evenly than just to have it exposed to the air. And so you're not going to flip it, but you're going to still, it's a little bit easier to coagulate that top. So a little salt and pepper. Just a little bit more. You can see real close to the yolk there. I get just a little more cooked. Oh, flipped it anyway. Well, that wasn't quite what I wanted to do. Turn that off. Use the turner to help slide it out. And there we have a beautiful sunny side up steam basted egg. And you can see very clearly that that yolk is still going to be nice and runny. This is one of my favorite variations on an over easy egg. So I'm going to again turn my burner on to a medium high, so a 7 or 8. And what I've done is I've taken just a piece of simple bread and I have buttered both sides, and then I've used a biscuit cutter or a glass to cut this circle out, and I'm going to cook that as well. And so the reason this is so great with Over Easy eggs is because Over Easy eggs have that runny yolk that if you're a fan of them, you know the best thing for that yolk, other than covering the whites, is to sop it up with a good piece of toast. So this I call bird in a basket, but I've also heard it referred to as egg in a hole. This toasts or cooks your toast right with your egg. So we're gonna add a little bit of butter or margarine to where the egg's gonna go, but we don't need it all over the pan because we've coated the bread. I don't want the egg to stick in the center here. So again, I've got this on a medium high heat right now. Not quite ready. Water didn't sizzle when I flicked it in. Make sure all over the inside of this space is coated so our egg doesn't stick when we drop it in there. And I'm going to use a custard cup again to drop it in so it's a little less severe. So we'll go ahead and we'll drop our egg in. That's good. You can see the white did begin to cook right away. Salt, pepper if you like. Let that cook just a little bit, and then we're going to turn it down to medium to finish it so that we don't overcook it. And I think one of the nicer parts about this too, if you're new at cooking your eggs Over Easy, the bread kind of helps you flip the egg usually, because it kind of, that frame kind of helps hold it all together. And then I've got that cutout cooking right alongside it in the skillet so that it's not wasted. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down to medium, so that's a 5 or a 6. And then just like with the Over Easy egg, we're going to get under the egg and the frame, flip it, I'm going to flip that little disc of bread as well. Just another 30 seconds to a minute on that second side. And then you can see we've got that nicely cooked. Our yolk is still good and runny. Oh, our little disc of bread could use another 30 seconds or so. But then here we have a nice bird in a basket ready to serve. So even though this is a video about basic egg preparations, I'd like to show you a sort of fancy scrambled egg that I enjoy making for my family. We call it country scramble. To make country scramble, we'll need eggs, leftover baked potatoes, butter or margarine. We use bacon bits and cooked sausage pieces. You could also use ham, or you could cook any of the meats yourself and drain them. We'll also need some milk and some cheese. Making country scramble does not require a lot of equipment. I need a nice size skillet, a turner, a paring knife for the potato and a cutting board, a fork to mix together the eggs and milk, and a mixing bowl to mix the eggs with the milk. So the potato was baked, left over from a meal, or you could just bake one, throw an extra one intentionally, or just bake it on its own to have it ready for this. And I'm just using a paring knife to peel the potato, take the skin off, and then I'm going to cut it into chunks. And this is where you could use a cutting board if that was more comfortable for you. We're just going to cut these into about medium to large dice. We don't want them to be too big. So we're going to start out with our potato, our butter or margarine and our meats in our skillet on a medium heat. Now I've added salt and pepper to taste, and I'm just warming these meats up. They're already cooked. The bacon is real bacon, not artificial bacon bits, but it's just more convenient than cooking fresh bacon. And I want to get the potato nice and warm. All of this needs to be ready to go, real hot, but not burnt, before I add my eggs. So just another minute or two, gently turning this over to get the entire mixture warmed through. Oh, and so if my family liked fresh onion cut, I'd probably put a little bit of that in here and saute that in the butter before I added the potatoes. But instead I just added a couple shakes of onion powder just for a little more flavor in the dish. So we'll get this all warmed up, and then it'll be time to add the egg. Now that my potato and meat mixture is warmed completely through, I'm going to take the eggs and milk that I've beat together. I'm going to pour that over the top. I'm going to scrape the bowl to make sure I get all that egg mixture in there. I forgot to mention earlier that if you want to make your scrambled eggs a little more richer in flavor, you could use half and half, or whole milk, or whipping cream instead of just 2% or skim milk. Notice I kind of let the eggs sit in the pan at the beginning. I want them to begin to set before I begin to stir. And this is still just on a medium heat. That is a 5 or 6. So now I'm going to take my turner and gently move the egg. It won't take very long at this point. So I've got everything in here at this point except the cheese. So I stirred it once. I'm gonna let that set for about 30 seconds before I stir it again. I want this to cook the egg completely through, but I want it to create nice large pieces or curds of egg that still have a lot of moisture to them. We don't want it to be all chopped up. We don't want it to look like somebody chewed it and put it back in the pan. And we don't want it to be dried out. And so just stirring occasionally like this in the beginning is part of how we do that, just like I mentioned for the scrambled eggs themselves earlier in the video. Just stir a little, let it sit. Make sure you go across the bottom whenever you're moving that. So stir and pause, stir and pause. You'll notice as you begin to stir, you'll turn over a cooked egg. That just gives you an idea of how close you are to the end. As you get closer to the end, you will need to stir a little more so that it doesn't burn. But again, we want those nice large pieces to form, so you will have to pause occasionally. So you can see when you get close to the end, when you stir the bottom, you can see fully cooked egg. We're going to do that just enough to finish the egg. And you can see how it's so important that the other food is already cooked and warmed, because the eggs go so relatively quickly. Now we're going to turn this off and add our cheese. And a cup to 2 cups of cheese, depending on your preference. And the heat of the pan itself and the eggs will be enough to melt the cheese. We don't need the burner on. Just going to stir this in gently so that it's throughout the egg mixture. And that residual heat will be plenty to melt the cheese. So now we finish preparing our country scramble. Here's our finished country scramble, a hearty dish to enjoy for breakfast or breakfast for dinner. Either way, you can't go wrong.